Week 7 Black Raw Dynasty review. So we'll be diving into a quick little review based on the league and how things are going right now after this Week 7 just concluded. So starting off, we'll go over some of the head-to-heads. Caleb's Casting Couch falls to 50 Shades Brown with a offensive outburst of 181.34 points. Caleb's Casting Couch with 145.88. So Caleb's Casting Couch falls there. Wad Squad takes down Make America Great Again with 160.22 versus 121.14. The Trust Fund QBs fall to Iburo and DD Cups. Trust Fund QBs at 109.74 to 150.66. Hit the Saquon in a low-scoring matchup. Takes down Team Chef Seth 99.06 to 91.12. And then Team Dagurin comes up against a injury-ridden Never Jamar Chase Ho and takes him down 149.2 to 140.74. So now what we're going to do is we're going to look into some of the weekly report. I have it pulled up on my phone. It's a little bit easier for me to comprehend that way. Starting off, the best team, of course, 50 Shades of Brown with 181.34. That was a week high score. A season high score. And then worst team this week was Team Chef Seth with 91.12. Players of the week, QB for Speedy Hilliard is Justin Herbert, 30.9 points, pretty good. Then running back, we have Christian McCaffrey on James' team with 39.1. Dylan with Jamar Chase at 38.1. I had Trey McBride, who had 29.4. Kenny had Brandon Aubrey with 18 points. And then Yusuf had the Texans defense, who had 22. So that was the starters of the week, but we do have some pretty good bench players this week too. I personally had Bo Nix on the bench with 39.96 points. That one hurts. Then Dylan had DeAndre Swift on his bench with 20.8. Kenny had AJ Brown on his bench with 28.1. Dylan also had Freiermuth on his bench, who had 28.1. Bernie had Rijkaard on his bench, who had 18. And then Quentin had the Browns defense, who put up 29 against Miami. So now the most efficient manager this week was Speedy Hilliard. He had 149.2 out of 154 possible. So he did his thing. I think it was 96.7%. So pretty high up there in the efficiency ratings. Least efficient was Quentin. He had 99.06 out of potential 148.92. So that's a big dip right there. And then we go to the highest points in the loss. So it was me. I had 145.88 against Kenny, who had 181.34. Lowest points in a win was Quentin with 99.06 against Chef Seth with 91.12. Biggest blowout was James over Kuroga with 150.66. Kuroga at 109.74. Closest game was Quentin over Yusuf. And then overachiever and underachiever. Overachiever Kenny had 181.34, and he was projected 134.34. So he nearly overperformed by 50 points. That's quite a game for him there. And then we have underachiever was Quentin. He was projected 120 and finished with 99.06. So about 20 points to fall off there. And that'll bring our current standings to Wad Squad and Iburo and DD Cups tied, 1 and 2. Right now for first place, both at 6 and 1. And then we have Trust Fund QBs and Team Dagurin. Both of those are 4 and 3. And then we have 50 Shades of Brown, Hit the Saquon, Make America Great Again, and Team Chef. All three are at 3 and 4. And then coming to ninth place, we have Jamar Chaseho, who's 2 and 5. And then we have Caleb's Casting Couch rounding out the bottom, who is 1 and 6. So it's unfortunate. So we got a couple win streaks going right now. James is on a 4-game win streak, so shout out to him. Jay Watt's on a 2-game win streak, and then we got a couple loss streaks. I'm on a 4-game loss streak, so that one hurts. But yeah, that's the weekly report, brought to you by Sleeper. So now, that's, like I said, standing right here. But what we're gonna do now is we're gonna look at some of the what's the word I'm looking for here? Some of the statistical trends. So we'll look at the weekly summary, or just a summary overall right now. So looking at it based off, if we sort this by record, which we can, um, we'll see. We have Watt Squad, James, and then all that doesn't really matter, but they're up at the top. But if we look at points for, we see a big change. So if we do the descending for points for, we see we have first place Watt Squad. His offense has been great this season, and then second place, shocker, 3-4, 50 Shades of Brown right here. So let me zoom in a little. Actually, get this better for y'all to see, or easier for y'all to see. So points for is 104, 1042.22, and his kicker there though is his points allowed. His defense has been shambolic this season. He has given up 1,033 points on defense. So another thing, if you look at right here, we have the standard deviation. If we look at how, I guess, standard deviation shows us how volatile and how, I guess, boom or bust the team is. So a lower standard deviation is better because that means that you're more consistent. But a higher one means you're kind of bouncing around. So if we look at some of these values right here, if we sort this, because like I said, you want the higher one. Higher one means more consistent. A consistent team like Bernie's has a 9.78 standard deviation, with his best week being 139 and his worst week being 112. So there's not much of a jump there from his average. He's pretty close on both ends, high and low. And then if we look at James is also very consistent, and so is Youssef. But as you can see, two of the super consistent teams tend to be are both 3-4, and one of them 6-1. So it seems like being super consistent isn't really on your in your favor at the moment. But if we look at some of these very volatile and boomer bust type teams, we got down here at the bottom, we have Team Daguerre, Eris's team, 4-3, so it's doing well for him. 50 Shades of Brown, pretty volatile as well, but that has to do with his points for. He's got a real high ceiling each week, because as you can see, his highest, his best week is the season's best week up to this point. And then look at Caleb's casting couch, also pretty volatile with 145 of his highest points, but real low right there with the 76.24 on the worst week. And same with Team Daguerre with a 67.76 worst week. So that kind of just shows where we're at. Also, I guess let's take a quick look at the worst defenses. So worst defenses, yeah, we know it's Kenny's. His defense has been getting dumped on. But if we look next, it's also me. I'm pretty bad there. I have a pretty bad defense. And then we go to James in third with the worst defense, but his point output has just been high enough that he's able to win the majority of his games. So he's 6-1, and as you see, there's not too much of a difference there. There's like a 80 point difference about right there, but those 80 points have helped him secure wins in most of his weeks up to this point. And then if we look at the other 6-1 player, he has a big difference in between his points for and points allowed. He's towards the lower end on points allowed. So that is a large reason that he is at the 6-1 rank that he is right now. So yeah, everything is starting to come together. Teams are starting to find their identity, it seems like. And then as we can see, the league average, of course, the league average points for and points against are the same. But on a week by week basis, we average, as a league, that league average is 131.31. So majority of people are trying to be better than this league average, because if you can beat the league average, that typically turns out for a win for you. But yeah, so now we're going to look at some of these graphs. But if we look at the points for versus points against, right here, what we see is, I'm sorry about that. We see, of course, up in the top right, points against. The more points you have against you is in the far right, and the more points you have for you is at the top. Actually, that's wrong. Give me 1 second, please. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that little mishap. But what we have here is a scatter plot of points for versus points against. So if you have more points for, you're going to be further to the right, and if you have more points against you, you're going to be higher up vertically. So if we look here, we can see the two teams that have the highest points. Or I guess the team in the top right with the highest points and highest points against them is 50 Shades of Brown. His defense has been, like I said, we've noticed struggling, but his offensive outpoint has just been high enough that he's been able to continue to compete, kind of like the Cowboys. And then we see over here who has high points for them, or against them, but low points for, because they're falling, as you can see right here, only 870 points for him, but 1,015 points against. So his defense has been bad, offense has been bad, kind of like the Jets right here. But if we look at some of these people in the middle right here who are fairly similar, like Make America Great Again, and then who's the other one right there? Never Jamar Chase-O. Make America Great Again, I believe, is 4-3, and Jamar Chase-O is 2-5. So they're fairly similar in the points for and points against. Right there, it just comes down to matchups. So I could see them being they have similar profiles, so I could see them being ending up at the same, around near the same spot at the end of the season. But like I said, it's just similar profiles. And then we come over here with good defense, bad offense. We have Chef Seth. He is 4-3, I believe, as well, or 3-4, one of those. And it's just been low-scoring games for him all around. So that has to do with injuries. It has to do with bye weeks, things like that. So we can take all that into account. But we see some other points over here. We have Wad Squad, who's got a really good defense, keeping them pretty low, below 900 points scored against him, but has nearly scored, or is the highest scorer. So once again, we can just see the spread out of how our offenses and defenses are lining up. And then if we come over here, so this right here is a weekly score range by volume. So up to this point, we've only had 6 games that have had more than 162 points. The majority of our games are falling between the 124 to 143, so that's just a pretty mid tier spot. Like we saw with our league average is 131 right now, and for this week specifically, it was nearly I think it was like 134.9 something. So we were a little bit over the league average. Our week average was higher than the league average up to this point. So it was a pretty good week in terms of everybody's performances. And then we've only had a few. I know I was one, and I believe Ayers was the other, and below 86 points, which is pretty terrible. But we've had only 4 that are like below 100. So 2 of those which were this week. So it's pretty shocking how just kind of how the values can spread out over time and things like that. And then over here, this is what we're gonna see this box and whisker plow right here. This is kind of showing us which teams are more concise, which teams are more consistent, I guess I should say, and which are more boom or bust, like it says on the graph. So obviously, a smaller box and plot or whiskers, it means you're more consistent. So for example, Seth, he's very consistent. Same with Bernard, his team is pretty consistent. Trust fund QBs is somewhat consistent, but he has a really high ceiling, as we can see by his point up here. He just had one boom game, 168.56. So as we can see up here, also Kenny, he's not super consistent. He's got a larger area, but he is pretty consistent actually. Like his lowest point right now is the highest or set highest lowest point. So, and then we got hit the Saquon, who's also got a pretty high floor as well. But then you can look at Caleb's Casting Couch and Team Urine, who both have a really low floor, and honestly haven't had a high ceiling yet. So this just kind of displays where the teams are at up to this point. But if we look at our kind of radar plot right here, we have on the right, we have the league averages, and then on the left, we have specific teams. So starting off, we're going to start with the team in first place, Wad Squad. So compared to the league average, if we look right here, he's at the top in points for. He's in the top of the average points, and he's got one of the best work weeks. So like I said earlier, his floor is near the top. So he's got a real high floor, and then though we haven't been able to see a super high ceiling from him yet. So obviously that'll come. It's only week 7, so we got lots of football left to play to be able to see what he can really bring to the table as far as scoring outbursts. And then here we look at standard deviation. He's pretty consistent. He has one of the lower standard deviations, so he's pretty consistent when it comes to scoring, and that's just kind of what's allowed him to be where he's at. And then if we go, let's look at another outlier. Like we can look at 50 Shades of Brown here. The graph disappeared. Let's see if that fit. There we go. All right, so if we look at 50 Shades of Brown here, see he's pretty high in points for, pretty high in points allowed, which is his kryptonite. But he's also pretty high. He's second highest in average. So he's second highest in points for, and I believe he's highest in points allowed. So yeah, it's like I said, he's got a really high ceiling, and he also has a really high floor because his worst week is still in the 80th percentile. So compared to the league summary, whereas on average a league's 0.4 is at 0.45, so in about the 45th percentile. So that even more so goes to show the difference between the top scoring teams and the bottom scoring teams, because there's nearly I believe it's like a 300. Let's look back right here. Nearly 300 points separating the two. So last portion I'm gonna dive into real quick is the injury report. So starting off with quarterbacks, Bryce Young out. Doesn't say it. Hopefully not much after. So he's at least expected to be out for this upcoming week. Jaden Daniels also hurt. Looks like they had an MRI today. So it's not a significant injury, it says. But Mariota did service pretty well while he backed up, while Daniels was out a couple weeks ago. Lamar Jackson is expected to come back, I think this week 8 coming up. So that could be huge for, anybody on the Ravens or whoever's got him. Could be big for them. Then running backs, Bucky still not expected to be back anytime soon. Aaron Jones Sr. though is expected to be back, depending on if he gets, depending on how the week goes. We'll be looking at news reports and stuff if we get any updates about practicing. But it seems that he'll be back activated on the roster this week. So hopefully he'll get some reps back out there. And then we have Deebo Samuel still hurt. Hopefully he'll be back in week 8. Is what the expectations are. Then Mike Evans, I'm pretty sure his is like a end of the season injury. He broke his clavicle. I think that's what it was. So apparently he's down bad. And then we have Egbuka, who played some in the game, so it doesn't look like it's going to be a problem for Egbuka. And going forward, it looks like he'll be back unless he got re-injured. Christian Watson and Christian Kirk both expected to return. I think, both are expected to return in week 8. So that'll be nice for them. And then tight ends, Cole Kmet is out, so Colston Loveland, if you have him on your bench, he might be someone to play this week. And Njoku also Oh, his is day to day, so he could be back in the Cleveland Browns lineup. Darren Waller, let's see, unknown currently, but hopefully he'll be back soon. He left week 7, so then let's see what we have over here. If we have any other info on Nico. So Nico's questionable apparently with a concussion, expected concussion. So that's not good. Mike Evans. Lastly, before we go, we're gonna take a look at the upcoming matchups. So first off, we got Caleb's Casting Couch against Make America Great Again. So two struggling teams right now, 3-4 and 1-6. Hopefully, we'll see some high scoring out of these teams right now. Not hot, projected super high, 113 and 110. So it looks like it'll be a pretty close game. Next, we got 50 Shades of Brown, our top scorer, who's 3-4 against Trust Fund QBs. And obviously, this is prior to roster updates and considering injuries, buys, things like that. So right now, it's showing 50 Shades of Brown with a heavy edge of 131 projected to 83.59 projected. Then we got Hit the Saquon against iBurrow and D Cups. Saquon Hit the Saquon is also only projected 80 points. So heavy edge to iBurrow and DD Cups for 116 projected. And then we have Never Jamar Chase a Hole against Team Chef Seth. Projected 134. Wow. Against projected 80 from Team Chef Seth. And then Wild Squad projected 129 against Team Gurin, which is projected 87.53. But yeah, appreciate you tuning in. But yeah, that's the weekly outlook. That's what we can expect to see next week. Obviously, the projections will ebb and flow as they do, but hopefully we'll see some good games next week. And yeah, I'll catch y'all next week.